Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we are currently ready, I think, to send up our science module here, and I do want to just double check that everything is completely good to go. It should be. We have a decoupler here, we have a remote guidance unit, we've got an advanced reaction wheel, we've got our fairing, we've got our heat shield, we have power on the outside, we've got our interplanetary stage, we have our ascent stage, and we have our... I'm gonna call that the center stage. It's really... I should come up with a better name for that. But all looks good. Let's just double check the staging and make absolutely sure that we are ready to go. I believe that we are. Yes, indeed. Let's do this. This is, of course, the third, or potentially fourth component of this mission that we've sent up. This is becoming quite the mission, there's no doubt about that. Oh, hello, we're back in 4K. Let's just bump that back down using AnyRes. Fantastic. And we don't need that open anymore. And off we go. Fantastic. So we've got 84 seconds of burn in our SRBs. Our SRBs are lifting completely on their own for right now. We're going to go to about 100 meters per second, and then begin our turn. So that should begin right about now, in fact. We've got another 67 seconds to make this turn, though, so we will make sure that we're keeping it moving kind of slow. Fantastic. Just continue moving on over. And after this, we're going a little quickly. But after this, we're going to need to figure out how exactly we want to send up the Ascent module. That's going to be a little bit more involved than these rovers were, for sure. We've got about 30 more seconds left in this particular stage. It's wanting to drift over towards the prograde node, and I'm not shocked by this, to be clear. But we're just holding it here for now, as we've got an additional 20 seconds left of burn in our SRBs. So let's go ahead and start heading on over. We've got about 10 seconds left now, and let's just lock to that prograde marker. There we go. SRBs detaching now. And off we go. We'll take it to 85 kilometers. Looks good. Okay, so we will go ahead and add a maneuver here. You know, I knew I was forgetting something. I forgot to look up how to do the mission planning in the new patch. Oh well, we don't need it. So we will do something along the lines of that. That'll be fine. We'll head over to that maneuver node. I would normally ditch the fairing right now, but we need that fairing for re-entry, so we will continue our way on up. And then once this is underway, we'll figure out how exactly we want to send up our Ascent module. That's going to be real interesting. I'm not entirely sure how we're going to send that guy. I mean, it is built for ascending, but not on Kerbin. We're gonna have to be pretty careful with it, I think. So let's hit space here before we can circularize. There we go. 1 minute 34 seconds. So that means T minus 47 seconds, I think. Yeah, I think that's right. So we'll burn this here in just a moment. Specifically, right about now. Fantastic. And off we go. And we'll just circularize, and we're going to be taking the same pathway as our other missions have been. Just slingshotting around the moon and getting out of the Kerbin system for now. We do have at least 2 more components that we need to send up, and I'm not exactly sure how they're going to end up working. So, well, I am pretty sure how one of them will end up working, if I'm honest. But I'm not sure how all of them will end up working. Let's put it that way. Okay, so we are going to continue this until we have achieved orbit here. We're still working on our horizontal velocity. Time to apoapsis is now. So that's actually kind of perfect timing. I like it. Still another 600 meters per second to go here, of course. And that's okay. That is absolutely fine. We're almost to orbital velocity at this point. Need another roughly 200 meters per second. And that won't be too bad. I'm mostly just watching this number up here. It could be this one down here as well. They're identical. But I'm watching the one up here. Once we hit 70k, then we are good. And that is now. So we'll save this 7 meters per second that we can use during our slingshot maneuver. We are going to have to utilize that during the slingshot maneuver, though. Like, this entire stage is going to be burned out during that. It's a little unfortunate, but it's not the end of the world by any means. So let's do something kind of like this, and let's look at that orbit. Fantastic. We're going to bring this on in a little bit over like that, I think? Yes. Like that. I hope. How's that? Oh, that's great. That's perfect. That is a good trajectory right there. Okay, so we'll head on over to that maneuver node. And that's in just a few seconds. So we will physics warp our turn. And we will time warp over to T minus 27 seconds. So let's just go ahead and warp here. I'm gonna warp a little faster. Okay, now we'll back off. And we will warp this, or rather burn this, now. This will, of course, burn off the remainder of this stage, and then we're going to be using our interplanetary stage for a little bit here, but we have plenty of Delta V to pull this off. I'm quite certain of this. So we are going to burn this down to be somewhere around, well, we know what we're going to burn this to be. We're going to burn it to be roughly this orbit. Now, I don't really care about the inclination. We'll change that later on. That stage is done, and off we go. Fantastic. This stage is, of course, far, far more efficient. And that is perfect. So, we are going to get ourselves on towards the moon. And this burn will be over momentarily. We're watching for this is what we want. Okay, I'm going to burn it much more slowly at this point. Good enough. We are on our way, and that is plenty safe. Perfect. So, with yet another rover on the way, let's not revert this. Let's go back to the Space Center. And the question now becomes, how exactly are we going to send up the Ascent module? And who all will be on it? We're also going to need a fuel tug, and that should be unmanned. So let's go ahead and do that first, I think. So, let's hop into the VAB, and let's open up the Ascent module. That is going to be this one. Now, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to lie. It's pretty ridiculous. We're going to send this up with no fuel in anything except for the header tanks. Like so. Okay. So, this has Clampotron Juniors, so we're going to go ahead and create ourselves a new craft here. We're going to have, on this craft, a remote guidance unit. Where is our remote guidance unit? There it is. Excellent. This is going to need a Communitron. We're also going to need probably some sort of a larger reaction wheel. A medium assembly might be okay here. So let's put on a communications device. I am going to have this be a relay antenna. Excellent. And that's an RA-15. That will do just fine. Let's get some power storage on this with a 2.5K rechargeable battery bank. That'll be plenty. Now, this is... Oh, hello. I changed my scene, I think. Or no, I changed my game capture. That's what I did. Fantastic. Let's bring that back over to Kerbal Space Program. Perfect. And... let's not do that anymore. However, what we need on this is some ridiculous overkill. Now we're going to send this up primarily empty. Maybe a little bit of fuel in this stage. Just a tiny bit. So it'll be something like that. Then, we're going to have some hilariously tiny and efficient engines on this. So, let's go ahead and put in something along the lines of... what do we want? Like a pug? Pugs are funny. There's no doubt about that. They're tremendously efficient, and that's what we're looking for here, is tremendous efficiency. Now, what we want is ghillie, and we want to make sure that we have solid thrust to weight here, even if this is completely full over ghillie. And actually, we do. We have very solid thrust to weight here, with this completely filled up. So that is fantastic. We are going to put in a pair of, or actually, we're going to do quad Lampatron Juniors on the sides. So we're going to do something like this, fairly low. And then we're going to need some form of pretty wide set legs in this. So we're just going to do like modular girder segments sticking out like this. I'm going to actually do another one. It's a bit ridiculous looking. And then this is going to have on it simply our landing legs. I wanted these landing legs to be quite a lot wider because of the ridiculously low gravity on ghillie. So we'll do something kind of like that, giving us a nice wide stance to land on. Excellent. Now, how are we going to dock this thing? Well, we're going to need to move our relay antenna. I can tell you that right now. We're probably going to want to end up having a fairing up here at some point. For right now, I'm going to put the relay antenna here. We are going to want some form of power generation. We shouldn't need retractable panels, but I'll do them anyway. We'll do 3x2s. And those will go, say, there. That'll be fantastic. And then we're going to need a docking port up here. We're also going to need a monoprop tank. How much monoprop are we going to need? Probably not a whole lot. We'll go for the 120 size tank. And then we'll do some reaction control thrusters. Something along the lines of that. And that is, of course, to be able to steer us in. I would love it if there was a retractable relay antenna. Unfortunately, I don't believe that there is, but that's fine in theory. We are going to want on here, certainly, a docking port up top. And that should be a Clampatron Junior. Like that. Okay, now this is what is going to be designed to land on ghillie and get filled up very, very slowly. We'll have it be something like this. So that's going to land on ghillie and get very, very slowly filled up, and then head on over to Eve orbit, where it will meet up with the Ascent module and dock up with it, and transfer that fuel into the Ascent module, which is only designed to, well, ascend through the atmosphere of Eve. Now, I'm not convinced that this relay antenna will survive ascent here. I guess we'll find out. It would also be nice if there was some way to fold in these legs for ascent, and I think I'm going to do that. So let's start these retracted, pull this off, and then we're going to do robotics. We're going to have the smallest hinge that is possible, which I think is this one. And then we're going to put this down on that, although this angle is not at all what I would like to see. I would like it to be like that. So that allows us to fold this down like so. In fact, we need to flip this around to be this direction. There we go. So we fold that down, and then once we are ready for these are physics-less parts at this point, I believe. Once we're ready for this, then we can set our target angle to be here, and then we can extend our landing legs. That is a small problem. We can extend our landing legs like that. Perfect. I had it right the first time. And in theory, we can stow them like this, but that doesn't seem safe to me somehow. So we may be stowing them like this. And yeah, this will have some drag to it, but not nearly as much as it would have if we had it in the out position the whole time. So that should be fine, and that also gives us a way to stow these away. We can even, do something along the lines of this to have a little more docking space down here if necessary. I don't think that will end up being necessary, but that will end up working. Now, I'm very concerned about the joint strength here. So let's put in a decoupler here. This is going to be a TD25, like that. And then in order to lift this, we are going to lift this with... If I can find the fuel tanks. There we go. We're going to lift this like so. So this is going to then have a poodle on it. And this is going to be a very, very tall rocket, isn't it? It is. I'm wondering if we want to lift this just like this and have the mainsail down here and fully fuel one of those tanks. So the mainsail would... Wait, I already did that. The mainsail would go down here, and then we would heavy lift it, of course. And then we would have, say, this tank be empty, and this tank be full for interplanetary. Like that. Now, I'm still very concerned about our joint strength here, so we will put in a strut connector like that. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Fantastic. That should do the trick there, and then we are, of course, going to need to heavy lift this. So let's put in our radial decouplers and have them go in, say, here-ish, and then we can put in a Clydesdale. That'll be absolutely fine. That's a Pollux. We want a Clydesdale. We'll put that in there, and of course, move this right on down to be probably not there. Probably more like here. Should be okay. Excellent. And we will need to do our aerodynamics, of course, and so we shall. We'll do that and put in our tail fins. They will go in here as well as somewhere around here for this one. Slightly lower, but it still should be absolutely fine, in theory. Okay, we will need to strut these together, of course. So we will put in a strut connector here and here, and then we will strut this up here as well. Just to make sure we've got that... Oh, we're in quad couple. Let's do that again, without being in quad couple. No sense in wasting that delta V. Okay, there we go. Something along those lines. This is, of course, not intended for any sort of atmospheric entry. I'm hoping that we're not going to have any issues up here on ascent. We might, in which case, we may want to put in a fairing. Maybe. The other option is that we simply downthrust these to, say, 80%. Something along those lines. And then we check to see that is a positive thrust to weight. So that means that we're going to be going up through the atmosphere a little bit slower. And that should do the trick in theory. Now that's going to be slightly less efficient as we're towards the ground, but it should be okay as we ascend. So this is, of course, going to be the... What am I going to call this? Like the Gilly Eve Buell Transit. Something like that. Something along those lines. What is our burn time that we have in this? 1 hour and 9 minutes without this even being at full thrust? This is going to be a really, really slow to burn. There's no doubt about that. With this at full here, it would be 2 hours and 18 minutes of burn time. Do we want a slightly more powerful engine in this? I mean, I feel like we don't need one, though. Not strictly speaking as such. This is a ludicrous amount of delta V, to be clear. On Eve, of course, our delta V, or rather our thrust to weight is going to be 0.13. So it's going to take a very long time to get this thing in position, but it only needs to do its thing once, in theory. So let's go ahead and send this up. It is a very underpowered engine in this stage. If for some reason this fails to get to orbit, then I don't know what to say. I mean, in reality, we probably don't need anywhere near the delta V that we have in stage 2. We probably would get away just fine with this, having this at half capacity. And this will, of course, increase our overall thrust to weight throughout the rest of the vehicle. This does mean that it's going to take that much longer to mine the ore, though, and it's going to be a lengthy ore mining process. We probably should have sent this first, in reality. But let's go ahead and send this guy on up. As far as how the ascent module is going to be, well, ascended, it's going to be interesting. There's no doubt about it. We'll have to see. We definitely want to make use of the extant engines on it. There's no doubt about that. And it can probably just get itself into space. The question becomes... Let me get this screen resolution corrected. The question becomes, of course, how much extra DV do we need to get it where it needs to go? And that's the question. Up we go. A very, very slow ascent indeed. We don't... Okay. So I'm going to do that. And we're just going to try to do a bit of a soft touchdown here. I don't know how soft this is going to be. It's not going to be very soft. Softer than I expected. Okay. This is... Whoa, is the game crashing? What? Everything froze. Oh, no, we're good. We're good. So we're going to topple over. Yes, I was aware that this was going to happen. But I wanted some parts to survive. So that's great. Now, the reason that I did that, and we're going to head back to the Space Center here. There is no reversion happening here. The reason that I did that is because I realized this has no KER on it, and we do actually require a KER for the mission profile. I know I forgot something. So we're going to recover what we can from that. Excellent. And we're going to launch this with a KER. This is a horrendously expensive mission that we're on. Oh, hey, we're back in 4K. That's just perfect. Exactly what we wanted here. There is a UI scale option, and when I properly switch to 4K, it won't be this small. But for right now, we'll just put on a KER or perhaps this computer flight unit. But I think we'll just put on a KER right there. And let's launch this. And we'll pop it back into 1080 once we get out onto the pad. Excellent. So with this properly underway, the only component that we have left that we're going to need is our... Let's get this back into 1080. Is going to be our ascent stage. And we'll have to figure out how exactly we want to do that. But all this looks good. So off we go properly this time. Excellent. I'm actually surprised that our mainsail didn't explode when we hit the pad. Like, I'm quite shocked by that. And yeah, our thrust to weight is definitely a lot lower. There's no doubt about that. But I specifically wanted to lower our speed through the upper atmosphere, and this will achieve that. It'll also lower our speed through the lower atmosphere, and that's fine. We really want our thrust to weight to be around 1.6 anyway, so let's go ahead and begin our turn. We do have a minute left on our SRB burn, so that will be just fine. And hopefully this will just prevent overheating of these exposed components. That's the overall goal here. Really, the dish should probably be on the other side, the relay antenna. But it's okay. Our thrust to weight is accelerating. We have 40 seconds left in our SRB burn. And that is just fine. We are attempting to flip backwards here, is what the aerodynamics of this is trying to do. But we can overcome that with our fins and our gimbaling, so that is just fine. We've got another 15 seconds left in our SRB burn, and that means that we should be making for the prograde marker. Let's go ahead and hang out here. Wonderful. SRBs are done, and off we go. So you can see that we're definitely lower in our apoapsis height. There is no doubt about that, but it should be fine. It should be more than fine. We're going to aim for about 75 kilometers, and we are, of course, going to need to do a burn about here and just get ourselves into space and take the same trajectory, or very close to it, that we have been for the others. Just adjusting our timing there, and that looks good. So we will head on over towards the marker. At this point, we could very, very easily... Nope, not that direction. We could very, very easily do that. Fantastic. That does actually increase our drag, I think, but I don't particularly care. So we are going to hit the barrier here pretty soon. I'm guessing this is going to be about the same 47 seconds, so I'm going to start burning that at 47, and we'll re-evaluate once we get into space. Okay, we are in vacuum now, and that means that we should be burning this at, let's see here, 1 minute, 10 seconds would of course be T-minus 45 seconds. So, yeah, or 35 seconds, technically. We should already be burning this, so that is correct. So let's just make our way into space here. This tank is empty. We're going to take any remaining fuel after this burn and put it into this tank here, because it will be more efficiently utilized up here. So that will be just fine. We have about 800 more meters per second to go here. We're going to hit the apoapsis in 4 seconds. And we are going to start going back down. So the question is, can we get this 600 meters per second that we need before we hit this atmosphere? And that is the question. I suspect that the answer to that is yes, looking at how the time to apoapsis is increasing. I think the answer to that is a solid yes. In fact, it definitely is. We're at 74.5 kilometers right now, 300 meters per second to go. We're good. No worries whatsoever here. 100 more meters per second to burn, and we are almost good enough. Good enough. Okay, all the remaining fuel from here needs to get transferred upward. So we will go ahead and do that. That will, of course, get transferred here. Excellent. And there we go. We can now ditch this stage. And this is going to be a lengthy burn, I can tell you that. But somewhere around the periapsis, that's going to be a 20-minute burn. That's going to be a 20-minute burn. We're going to need to do this next orbit then. It's going to be lengthy. There's no doubt about it. But this is a very efficient engine. It's just not a great thrust to weight. So it'll have to be next orbit, and we'll bring it in something along the lines of, we should probably do, not that, about this. Yes. There. Okay, we'll lock that to the maneuver node. And we will aim for that, and we will physics warp. Man, that's a tiny little engine, but we don't need anything bigger. And we'll go ahead and warp to this maneuver. This looks backwards, but it isn't backwards. We know it's not backwards. Okay, so we need to burn this in a little while. It is, however, time to put a cut in here, and this is going to be a very, very long burn. And we don't actually need it extended. I just wanted to prove that it wasn't backwards, even if it's just to myself. This is going to be a very, very long burn, so we're going to want to start this burn off camera. When we come back next episode, this burn will be mostly complete. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and I will see you all next time.